Yes, we're currently 8th, so we own it with one game to go, so that'd be the great test. Well, I don't make the rules.
No, I understand that, but the way...
No. There's only two things that interest me through the year. The final siren of each game, because it doesn't matter what happens during the game, it's the final siren tells you the score. At round 23, the AFL produce a ladder that says final 8. We're in a different type of year than we have in the past. Nonetheless, when they, being the rule maker, say that that's your final 8 and you happen to be in it, you're in the finals. If you're out of it, you're out of the finals, regardless of how it works. Oh, that's up to the AFL and Essendon. I think, it's been done to death. My opinion is matters not. I just said, the AFL have made their rule about Essendon. It's been done to death. I'm out of it, totally. That's a very interesting question because I guess the last month has been interesting, outside of the whole year, but the last month in particular because we've been closing in, got beaten, beat Richmond, got beaten by Essendon in the last 58 seconds. So the emotional roller coaster has been in place here. There's no question about that. And that's not necessarily a great thing because I've been through that at other clubs where on a day-to-day basis, for instance, a player being reported and you're down in the mouth, and the next day you think, well, I've got all the evidence that can get him off, and you lose that, and you go. And this has happened at Collingwood in one of the finals, and you go to appeal and you lose that. So your emotions are like that, and it's not great for the side. However, I guess in this case, all along, we've just been on the process trail, and all along we've looked at our ladder. That's ours. As I've said to the player group in October last year, there's only one ladder that is of concern by the end of the year, and that's the week 23 ladder. Now, that's an AFL ladder. So if that's got through to the group, then we've played every game on its merits without any reference at all to finals football, and we don't stop talking about it. It's not that we say we're banning people saying about final 8 or final 4 or do we make it or don't make it. It's just simply we've tried to take the emotion out of it by concentrating on a week-to-week basis, and that's not on winning, it's on the basis of trying to improve and get better and find our squad in here that's better. So I think we've done pretty well to eliminate a lot of that uncertainty and thereby taking a lot of the emotion out of it. So now, to answer that question, we have destiny in our own hands. Well, we need to play our best football this week. Absolutely. Tomorrow. Well, let's worry about this game first, because all the rest won't count if we don't win this one. Well, they're up last week. We played some damn good football last week. We had 34 shots on goal to our opponents' 20. We didn't win the game of footy because we didn't take our chances. But we played very good football against... We're 11 points down against Fremantle at three-quarter time. I rate Fremantle and Collingwood as the two best sides we've played this year. We're 11 points down at three-quarter time, and we got beaten by 6 goals, 36. We beat Richmond, the final 8 side. We had Essendon cold in many respects until we just lost confidence in our own abilities in many respects. So we're not playing poor football. We're playing patchy football, and that's not conducive to winning a lot of games. But nonetheless, I know if we keep working on that process of making sure that we focus in on the tasks at hand, then the job looks after itself. So this again, we can't afford to be worrying about what's going to happen on Sunday night when the final at round 23, the final 8 is chosen. We just look after ourselves, and that's the fortunate position to be in at the moment. Oh, most definitely. We don't want to be kicking 50 points. I think 34 is enough to win games of footy. It's got to be more settled, and sometimes it becomes contagious. And very good footballers are missing some reasonably simple goals. But if this was a case of a Carlton case, then we'd have a worry. Regularly through the year, we've seen it happen. We've seen, and on the other side of the coin, we've seen 20 goals, 6 scored by some sides, and a week later they've kicked 10, 16. He was injured the previous week. the facts are out there, and they're right, is that there was a disciplinary issue, and I've never ever let the tail wag the dog. So it was a recommendation from the player group, from the leaders, that they spoke about the issue, and we'd already spoken about it as a match committee, and our best advice to the playing group and to Jeff was that he plays in the reserves and proves that he's back in touch with reality, and he went back and played a very significant game.
What do you think of his excuse, Mick? Couldn't find a car park.
No, well, that's what you are believing. That's the reason. I'm not about to go through the pros and cons of what did take place. I think everyone in this room at 9 o'clock this morning had no doubt what took place, and it's a different circumstances. Life's not as simple as just saying I missed a car park. That's not it. Until you walk in someone else's footsteps or someone else's shoes, you don't realise. So it's a very, very flippant remark to make. This is not a shot at you. It's just a very flippant remark to think that that's the only thing why I didn't get a game. I think footballers in general, right now, are under massive pressure, more pressure than they've ever been under before. There are certain circumstances that are handled well by players, and there's certain circumstances that are held not so well by players. And we are here to make sure that we don't correct every wrong because we think it's consistently right to do so. We are here to make sure that some errors aren't repeated, and we try to fix the problem and also give the player an opportunity to readdress his mindset, because the world's not that easy for these players. It might be for some, but by and large, let me tell you, there's far more issues in players today than ever has been. So let's just leave it at that. He's over it. He's a very valued person, very valued player. Player group are very aware of it, and it's been resolved, if that answers that question. Well, I think it's anything that is fair for everyone. So in other words, if we all have 2 games, if they said none, 1, 6, as long as we've all got the chance to play those 6, 1 or none, that's okay by me. It's the only problem I ever have with things, if it's going to affect the player's health, if it's going to affect the longevity of young players. In other words, the NAB Cup in the past has been a great servant for our young players to get a few games in before the main season. That may not be the case this time. You may not be experimenting with young players to go into a main season as much as you would have, because you've really got 2 weeks to get your senior players up and running for that senior game. So they'll have to bide their time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because we're all on the same plate. It's only if teams somehow or other are able to get away from that two games. And you can have as many as you like, many practice matches as you like among yourselves. So, but I think the player group would like the chance to have 2 breaks during the year. And because the season is terribly, terribly long. The games are too long. I've said that all in the past, that the games are far too long for viewer and also for player. And the season is a brutal season. 22 weeks is very, very brutal. Have a look at the number of players that I haven't got available. And I'm just one little part of I'm 1/18th. I would have at least 10 players that can't play, and probably 2 or 3 weeks ago can't play for the rest of the year. And we are not, we're like most clubs. I don't think they're playing for no, I wouldn't bank it on one game. That's silly. Someone might have a bad day. Let's say Chris Judd was playing. Well, Murph, our captain, had a bad day. What do I say to him? That's it. See you later. No.
Fringe players, I'm sort of talking about.
Well, no, that's unfair to call players fringe players. You address them as fringe players?
Oh, maybe you might identify certain players might be on the cusp of getting re-signed, and others might be on the cusp of being.
No, they're not going to be judged on one game. Albeit, I do value the big stage. Okay, so if there's a regular repeat offender who can't measure up, logic says that you have to make a pretty firm decision on that. And this might be one of many, but this is a mini final for us. Of course it is, and we'll be judging players, but not on one game. No, there's other games. I'd like to judge it on who played well against the top 8 sides this year. And we've got the capacity to do that. because we know who we've played, and we know we keep our votes, and we keep an assessment of those players. Predictable, I think Mark Evans has done a terrific job of listening to the clubs. Terrific job. And the one thing that we needed most of all was us to be coaches and not be coached by the AFL. And that was fine. If you want to use 100 in the first quarter and 20 for the rest of it, that's your prerogative. And I think that is so important that we design how we use those 120. And most clubs are around that mark anyway when you add on the changes during the quarters. So I applaud Mark and the AFL. I think it's a terrific starting point, and they can judge from there.
Thanks, guys.
All the best.